The feeling that I felt in that workplace, I remember I felt so low and undervalued, underappreciated. I felt so powerless. I said to myself, there must be so many other people that feel like this. Not just in this workplace, but in life, because of their difference, or just because they feel like they're marginalised or they don't have a voice. And the way I feel is actually sickening. It's unhealthy. And if I continue like this, I'm not going to be healthy mentally or physically, because my mind was in a space of, I don't want to be here anymore. Like that, I didn't want to be here at all.
And I appreciate you coming down, making that trek from
Greenwich, darling.
I was going to say it, but I didn't know if you wanted to say it on the podcast.
It's okay, it's fine. I live in Greenwich.
From Greenwich, wherever that is. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming down. I'm excited to have you on board today. To kick things off, you come from you're in the world of DE&I. I mean, you do a few things: entrepreneur, podcaster, DE&I consultant, TEDx speaker, a few things. Wear a few hats. But what I want to do is I want to ask you about, particularly around your work in the DE&I space. Why do you love what you do?
That's a big question.
You can take your time.
Yeah. No, I will. So the main reason why I love working in DEI is because I see the growth and impact that it has on underrepresented groups. So they're actually able to thrive in workplaces, stay in places for longer. They're able to navigate spaces in a more safer, like a mentally safer space for them. There's more representation. And then also organisations are able to understand the value of difference. I think traditionally, a lot of companies have only seen the value in a particular role being held by a particular type of person. So being able to influence the narrative being changed and seeing that manifest is a beautiful thing to see. It's very fulfilling, it's empowering, and I think it's what the world needs. So that's why kind of I do what I do.
Tell me about your own experience in the workplace, and in particular in the DE&I space, whether you felt that there was any lacking in that diversity and inclusion in your own experience when you've been working in the workspace.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I think there's one experience that I think anyone that's listened or followed my story may know about, but I can go into it in kind of a bit more detail here. So I think prior to my working experience, and for those that don't know, my background's in recruitment. So I started off in sales, then I progressed into recruitment agency world. I never really experienced any direct racism or discrimination in recruitment as an agency consultant, but I saw it with candidates a lot of the time. So I saw that decisions weren't made. For example, I might send the CV over, the hiring manager will be like, yes, we love them. But they met them and they might have an accent. They might be from India or they might be from Nigeria. And all of a sudden they said, no, they're not going to be a right fit for our organisation. And there was no further explanation on that. They were great. They were highly educated, great skills. They could do the job. And I find that to be quite reoccurring. There was one time I was on the phone as a consultant and I spoke to a client and he actually said, we'll prefer not to have any black people actually come. But he didn't, for some reason, he didn't realise I was black on the phone. And then...
Wait. He said that to a client that he was talking to?
He was black.
Yeah.
He was black, so he either felt comfortable enough to tell me that he doesn't want... He was like, I'd rather not have any black people because he said, you know how black people can be. But he was black.
I get it, right.
And I was like...
Wild.
Yeah. And he said that to me, not knowing what I am. I don't know how he felt. But it then kind of dawned on me, there needs to be some level of representation in the workplace, or there needs to also be some level of education around what isn't okay. Like, this is a crazy bias that you obviously have, which is going to block off doors to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was a tiny thing. But the ultimate changing factor for me was when I had one client. So do you know how recruitment agencies work?
Maybe somewhat.
Okay, so if you're working as a recruitment consultant, you have multiple different clients that you work with, and you try to hire, and you try to get roles in for them. You get paid for the roles. So there's one client that said to me, Alicia, you've been hiring with me for the past 6 months, but everyone keeps on leaving. Like, why is like people keep on leaving? Can you come in and just understand why people keep on leaving? That was outside of my role, but I was really interested to know actually, why people leaving your organisation. But I'd done interviews with different staff members, and the common themes in the conversation was we feel silenced. We feel like we can't say anything. He's a bit erratic. He says some wild things. Like, they just hated the owner of the company. And when I had a conversation with him, he was absolutely in a different mindset, delusional. He was like, I give this to them, I pay them well, I take them to the, this rooftop bar, I do this and that, how can they not like me? But when I spoke to the employees, I realised that there was a deeper rooted issue in the culture. So I was like, okay, there's a problem here. That's the first time I noticed it in a workplace in general. Then I decided to then go on to work in-house. Now, the transition to go from recruitment consultant to working in-house is very difficult because the style of working is different. So I had to then go to an intermediate company and work as work on projects with a consultancy. So the company I worked with, I won't say their name, but they were the company that opened my eyes to crazy discrimination. So I remember I got there and I was working actually on site for Spotify. That was the client I was working with. So I was really excited. The workplace itself had loads of black people, really diverse, loads of people from different cultures. So I thought, this is sick. Like, we've got loads of people so a lot of my friends worked there. It was a vibe, right? On the outside. But then I noticed that every week, somebody is miraculously leaving that happened to be black. Out of the blue, just pop. And I was like, why are these people leaving? No one was saying anything. People were just saying, oh, yeah. And, the CEO would say, so we've had some people leave. Unfortunately, they don't fit the culture here or whatever it is. And if you don't comply, then you're out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, that was one thing. By the way, you can interrupt me at any point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? So I remember I had a manager, this white guy from Essex, never forget him. And in our first meeting, when I joined the company, they put me on a more junior role than I felt like I should have been on because of years' experience. I was like, okay, cool. So when I went into my first meeting with him, I said to him, look, I know what I'm doing. I just want to know what are the measurables in place for me to get to the next level. And he was really struggling to tell me. And I think that is a problem in itself. Why are you struggling to tell me what the next steps are? Like, so I don't know what to do. So I said, no, let's put that together. Slow down, Alicia, take your time. I said, in my mind I'm thinking, don't tell me to slow down. I just want to know the information, right? And that's one thing I noticed. Why are you not giving me access to information? On top of that, what he used to do, outside of our one-to-one meetings, he never used to acknowledge my presence. Which is also a microaggression that people don't know about. Because if your manager that is supposed to support you and advocate for you doesn't acknowledge your presence in other settings outside your meetings, you then feel excluded. You feel like, I don't really belong here. So I could be in the kitchen making a coffee and he comes in, hey, looks at me, walk past. That's a microaggression. Because that made me feel, there was like a feeling inside of me that was like, that's weird. Yeah. There was a time in that workplace, I'm just going to highlight some scenarios that really made me feel like, wow, this is a problem. Because I went in the workplace confident and I walked out with my head low. And for me, that's an issue. So I remember sometimes we used to sit down. There was one particular time we were sitting down having lunch with my black colleagues, having a great time. The CEO comes over, stands there, puts his hands on his hips. You guys, shaking heads. You can't be sitting together. You have to separate.
Is this the same person or is it a different person now?
So my manager is the one that ignores me.
He's not the CEO?
He's not the CEO.
Okay, just a line manager.
He's like my line manager, but he's a part of the leadership team.
Got it.
The CEO of the company comes up to us and says that.
A white guy as well?
He's white.
Okay.
White guy, Jewish guy. Jewish background, but I don't think Anyway, so he came up, you guys can't sit together. And my friend at the time, he had been there for longer than me. So he then said to me, yeah, he doesn't really like us sitting together and stuff. So this wasn't the first time. So I was like, what is it you want us to do? He was like, you guys separate and emerge. We had to get up and he stood there until we separated and we had to emerge ourselves into different groups. Do you know how mad that is?
That's wild.
Do you know how mad? Like, that's mad.
Yeah.
And we all then felt uncomfortable to even sit together ever. in work settings, in the pub, at Christmas parties, social parties. We was like, we can't be together. We have to merge ourselves in other spaces. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand the importance of everyone integrating and not always sticking to the same people. I get that. But you can't pick on one group and tell that group that they can't do that, because you never done it to any other groups. You never said you need to go and immerse yourself into these spaces. You made sure that we were highlighted as the single ones out to do that. That was one problem. On top of that, on a personal note, my line manager was awful. Like, I prayed to God, and I thank God so much. I've never seen him again since, because I don't know what words might come out my mouth. He was awful. Because the things he used to carry back to me was like, oh, there was one time I was on the phone to my dad at lunchtime talking about perfumes that my dad wanted to get for me. And he was like, yeah, I've got some ones. If you have any friends that want some, just talking. I go to have a one-to-one meeting with this manager that doesn't acknowledge me, that's not trying to build any type of relationship with me. And he says to me, oh, he had nothing to criticize about my work, because my work was good. I delivered, I done what I was supposed to do. There was no problems. I used to even go above and beyond. I helped them with their social media strategy. I ran like internal events for them. I did like a charity event. I done other things for this company outside of my role, right? And that's me over delivering to prove my value and worth, because I felt so small.
Yeah.
So I remember he said to me that time, Alicia, someone actually overheard your conversation at lunchtime, and they said you're selling stolen perfumes. And I said, no, that's not what, where did that come from? Alicia, it's very unprofessional to be talking about that. And actually, we can report that. Like, you can't be selling stolen perfumes. Imagine a client was here. And I was just like, hold on a minute. Before you go back to this messenger that's come to you to get them to verify their information, you're not even coming to me to discover what happened.
It's coming to accuse you.
You're coming to just come and point fingers at me. So I'm there again. I already feel small. I'm feeling smaller. So I then find out who said it, because I had done some investigating to see who was there at lunchtime. I approached a person who was a white male, and I asked them, did you actually say that to my manager? Because I know that they're really tight friends. He said, yeah, I did. I said, you took this information from a conversation I was having, a private conversation. You made a conclusion about what I was doing, and you carried it to my manager. You didn't even think to come to me to verify any information, or you didn't think to just mind your business. No, Alicia, I felt like there was something at risk in the business. I had to report it. I said to him straight, I said, if I was a white woman with blonde hair, you would have never thought that. Don't you ever. I said to him, keep your name out my mouth. And the thing is, I think they didn't like that in that workplace, because I was very outspoken in those situations. I said to him, don't ever speak to me. Don't speak about me. I don't even want to see you say hello to me. Don't talk to me, because you see your mouth is something else. I was really letting them rip. So those type of situations would go back to management. Alicia's a threat to the business. Alicia's an aggressor. Alicia's aggressive. Do you know what I mean? That's the narrative that will be coming out. But you don't come for me. So that was one situation. Another situation would happen where I was at lunchtime. There was some people. We had a Philippines office. Some people came over from the Philippines. There was a girl who was Filipino. And I said, oh, you from the Philippines office? She wasn't. She was from the London office. I was like, okay, cool. Well, I know there's people here, talking. We got along. Next meeting I had with HR, Alicia, it's been reported that you've been racist in the office. You've been racist because you assumed that someone was from the Philippines. First of all, there were people from the Filipino office in that week. She's also Filipino. It was a fair question.
Yeah.
It's not me being rude. It's not me being racist. And furthermore, I said, did she report it? Because we spoke and she was fine. No, 2 other people overheard and they felt so offended. All of these things kept on happening. I would send a message to a girl. I remember there was one particular white girl that used to always cry wolf all the time. And she had a meeting. I had a meeting about her saying, Alicia was really aggressive towards me in this message. I read the message. I think it was something like, I'll come back to you. Just a blunt message, no X's and hearts and whatever. And HR pulled it up and said, I can see how she can read this, being aggressive. I said, tell her to take her white fragility tears somewhere else. I'm not the one, like, what? Because she's done this to 3 other black girls. She's never accused anyone else of being aggressive, but us, all of a sudden. And all the other girls have taken it on the chin and saying, we've had to just apologise. And I used to always speak up, so I then always looked like the aggressor. So those situations happened. But there was this one situation which was almost a cherry on top, where there was so many, but this one was a massive one in particular. So the white girl that used to always cry wolf, she was in my team with the manager that never used to say hello to me. And in that team, he was friends with pretty much all of them, or he used to suck up to the one other black guy that was there. And I used to stay silent. I silenced myself in those rooms. I didn't contribute anything. I didn't give any updates. I stayed silent because I didn't want anything that I said to be taken out of context.
Yeah.
So that was a common thing there. So I remember one time, and those girls, they didn't like me. For whatever reason, they didn't like me. Now, I remember one time I was in the office and I was walking and I saw both of them kind of just like pointing towards me. So I said, oh, you still think you can bully me in the workplace, or you can talk about me in the workplace? This is my time to report it. So I said, can we have a conversation? There's been 2 people on the team that has made me feel really uncomfortable in the office because I saw them pointing and talking about me. Oh, Alicia, you're probably just taking things out of context. Hold on a minute. You've come to me for stolen perfumes, for, you know,
a message that was too blunt.
For a message that was too blunt. You for calling me racist, for saying that I made someone feel, because there were loads of other things. I was like, you've come to me on all these different things, but you never once went to them to say they might be taking things out of context. The minute I come and tell you how I'm feeling about something, I'm taking things out of context. So I said, I'm being honest, I feel uncomfortable. And I said to him, there's a built up level of uncomfortability and I'm vocalizing it to you. What are you going to do about it? I said, I want to speak to HR about it. By the way, HR was led by a black woman. And now I'm so happy that I had a real conversation with her, because there was a lot of things that she was doing that was incorrect, but I told her, because she kept on complying by things. But I found out afterwards, she too was being bullied by the CEO and she just wanted to keep her job. So she was just doing things, but she was being a sellout. And I told her, like, and thank God that she is the person that she is, because even this year she's got me paid bookings for speaking and stuff, because I think she's then turned that into respect. Yeah. But I said to her, you were selling that, babe. You can't be doing that. Like, for a job, not doing. So anyway, I remember my manager at the time said, Alicia, there's a process you got to go through. There's a form you got to fill in. You got to do this. I said, send me the form. I'll fill it in. So that was on a Monday. Yeah. The next day on a Tuesday, I remember I emailed him saying, I messaged him saying, can I have the form, please? He didn't reply. I said, I was bringing another form, please. He said, okay, I'll get you the form. Anyway, ended up not giving me the form, so I just sent an email with the details of what took place. I sent it to HR and I copied him in and I said, I've been waiting for the form, but this is the information. And then HR emailed me back saying, what form are you talking about?
There's no form.
There was no form. And so I said, well, my managers now try to deviate me and try to basically block me from reporting something that me vocalising, me being uncomfortable, which clearly tells me with the combination of you coming back to me with all of these different things, and when I want to vocalise something and you not acknowledging me, and he got me kicked off the project as well. That's something I haven't vocalised. Everything was going fine. I always noticed a shift so I had a key stakeholder in the US who was a very horrible lady. But all my other stakeholders, my hiring managers, are really nice, but she was really horrible. And I think that her built perception of me, we only had meetings together, was built from him. So I remember one time he went to New York, and after that he came back and said, she doesn't like working with you. She thinks you're really... And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, and what I did on purpose, I remember I got a feedback form with all my hiring managers all over the world that I work with, from Chicago to Amsterdam to whoever. And I said, let me get them to feedback on this form. Got their feedback. I said, well, my stakeholders are saying something different. I've hired all my 28 roles under the timeline that I was even given. So what's the problem? No, like, she doesn't like working. So he used to build up all of these different perceptions about me to make me seem invaluable, to make me seem less than, to make me seem like I'm not worthy. So when I had a meeting with HR and I said, I want to talk about this issue, I spoke about it, and it was trivialized. It was like, Alicia, come on, like, you're being over dramatic and whatever it is. And it was almost like you're lying in not so many words. And I thank the Lord, okay, someone else in the office who was a black woman, she was a VP in the company, she saw it and independently witnessed and independently reported it. I didn't know that until the day after. The HR manager, who was a black woman, said to me, so-and-so has reported the same thing. We're so sorry. We got this wrong. And I literally burst into tears saying, you people have put me through hell. And the one time I want to talk about something, you silenced me. Like the one time you told me that I'm a problem. And the feeling that I felt in that workplace, I remember I felt so low and undervalued, underappreciated. I felt so powerless. I said to myself, there must be so many other people that feel like this. Not just in this workplace, but in life, because of their difference, or just because they feel like they're marginalized or they don't have a voice. And the way I feel is actually sickening. It's unhealthy. And if I continue like this, I'm not going to be healthy mentally or physically, because my mind was in a space of, I don't want to be here anymore. Like that, I did not want to be here at all. And then after that whole situation, that was crazy. But I think another thing that took place is a Christmas party. The last thing, I remember they sent around leaflets to all the girls saying, yeah, we've got makeup artists and hairstylists coming in to glam you guys up. And I looked at the leaflet and there's black girls here, not one black hairdresser, not one black MUA. And I said to HR, can you get a black hairdresser in, please? Could you get a black MUA in? Because my hair was short at the time. I said, I need someone that can do my hair. All of these makeup artists don't seem like they can even do my makeup. Oh, Alicia, who else is requesting this? Are you insane, woman? Are you insane? You are a black woman saying, who else is requesting this? I'm requesting it. Don't worry about no one else. All the other black girls there wasn't going to say anything. They were just going to say, I'll do my own makeup. No, why? Why should you do your own makeup when every other white lady in the workplace can get their makeup done? What's that saying about the value about us, our value and our beauty? We deserve to look beautiful too. We deserve to have the same treatment. So I'm gonna speak up. So they got some black hairstylists and makeup artists in. And I remember when they came in, one of the hairdressers said, was you the lady that said that you want to get black? So I said, yeah, I was the person. And then I thought to myself, do you know what? This was a small thing, but I've got a voice and influence, because this workplace hates me, but they still listen to me in this scenario. This workplace hates me, but I still run a carnival event now. I still run Black History Month event. I still got my own caterers in. I still got my friends to come in and do twerk classes. I still had influence, even though they tried to stop my voice. So I thought, you know what? Even though this place is quite limiting for me, if I go elsewhere, I can have such a big impact. If I do this outside of this workplace, I can have an unstoppable voice. And I remember I spoke up. I'd done like a long Instagram story when I left that workplace, because I left after the Christmas party, and they spoke about the carnival event, the Black History Month event, all these things that have happened, and they gave the credit to someone else in the business, and everyone looked at me at the time and was like, that's a bit awkward, because we know that you just definitely did this. And I thought, yeah, you guys are absolutely mad. So when I left, I decided I'm going to take this journey seriously and actually help organisations. And instead of making this about a rant, like I spoke about it on Instagram, I did a rant. And do you know what happened, Tevin? I counted about maybe 12 separate people that were currently working at that organisation that came to me and said, oh my gosh, I'm going through this. And they weren't just black women as well. They might have just been people from different backgrounds, people with difference. The VP at the time, that was a black woman, she messaged me just the other day on LinkedIn saying, the CEO used to say to me all the time, like, you know, I can't sit with black people. I can't do this. And she messaged me saying, oh my gosh, I went through the same thing too. Like, he was horrible to me too. So I was like, you are infecting so many people. And do you know what makes it worse? This company's hiring for companies like Apple, Deliveroo, Just Eat, Spotify. So you're there infecting up all these big tech companies and I said, no, we need to reverse it, because if the mentality of the hiring people is like that, you're going to have an impact with who you're working with and who you're hiring, which means that you might actually affect other workplace cultures and block out opportunities to actually climb the corporate ladder. So that's kind of when it was all a big thing for me, where I was like, no, this needs to stop. I need to have some type of impact and use my voice. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. So that company he was working for sounds like it was a global company, because they got offices all over, right?
No, it was actually a company just based in the UK, but they worked on global clients. So people used to travel and stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
I ask because there's a lot of global companies. So when you're talking, I've got a lot of other stories popping into my head from other friends who have told me about things that they've gone through with other organizations. And they're global organizations. Global organizations, if you go onto their websites, you'll find DE&I pages that'll go through, and reports and all sorts of stuff that'll go through what they're doing to make their workplace more diverse and more inclusive. But then when it comes down to the nitty gritty, when employees or the friends I've spoken about are actually going through stuff and they report it, then there's issue. They report it and then they start getting marginalized, or gaslighted or whatever, then it's like a lot of it is a lot of lip service. And I'm wondering, like, yeah, I think there's a lot of organisations that do that lip service thing. It was like with the Black Lives Matter, when the squares, you know, the black squares and all of that kind of thing after George Floyd was murdered. And it was a lot of lip service, because after that, what really changed in a lot of organisations, what changed in the corporate world, in society? Not much. Not much. It's easy to put up a page and to put up a post on Instagram, but it's much more, there's no tangibility to it though. Only tangible, like, what are you actually doing? When you was going through what you're going through, and wait, how long were you there for?
Not long at all. Probably 6 months.
My goodness.
All of that in 6 months, right? Can you imagine? Every day there was something new. I was trembling coming to the office.
That sounds nuts, man.
Yeah.
But when you go through that, so that 6 month period, intense 6 month period, yeah, and you're being hit left, right, and centre in the workplace, and you're there full time. Like, you spoke about them trying to silence your voice, but then you, even up until the end, still feeling like you had the power to use your voice and advocate for we're going to get this and we're going to do that, etc., etc. Where did that come from? That, the power in your voice. Like, how did you, when you're going through it, because you're getting hit all the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So growing up, I was always the person to chat back. Growing up as a child, I was always, my dad used to always say, "Alicia, you're so rebellious. Like, you just don't listen. You question everything." I was always someone that questioned things. I was curious. So I think a part of it is genuinely my character. That's one thing. But then also, I know where I'm coming from. I know the family I come from. I know how I've been raised. I know what we've achieved. So really and truly, I'm never threatened to lose a job. That's one thing. Yeah, I'll talk up, but you fire me. I'm a smart woman. I'm a valuable person. I come from a good family. They've really grounded me and made me feel like I'm fine. So I think that has a massive impact. And that's why I actually realised the reason why a lot of people don't have strong voices is because they don't have like a solid tribe of people around them to empower them outside of work. And hence why I started Black Create Connect when I did, because I thought people actually need a consistent tribe of people so that if they're going through nonsense in the workplace, they can have the power to speak up, knowing that, knowing just that they're grounded in so much greatness. And I think that's what it is. I just had so much greatness around me, even though I had friends at that workplace that stayed afterwards, that even knowing my experiences, because they didn't want to lose their job. They were thinking about themselves, right? And I let them go on that journey on their own. I didn't pay attention to that. People operate with fear, but I just don't operate with fear. I'm a little bit fearless. So that's what it was for me. You can't be scared. You have to value yourself, respect yourself, and that's kind of where it came from.
When you spoke about black staff, you're recruiting black staff and they're just leaving the workplace over and over again. And that's just a common theme in the corporate world in general, that when it comes to black staff, attrition rates are always a lot higher than other groups. What are you hearing from maybe people in the Black Create Connects community or friends or family or whatnot? Like, you've gone through your experience and what are you hearing from other peers, like, as to why people are leaving the workplace?
It's so similar to my experiences. Almost every week I get a new person telling me from the group chat about something they're going through, a grievance, managers blocking their progression and growth, hearing about being underpaid in comparison to the rest of the team and feeling like, I'm being paid 10k less than everybody else. That's a very, very common thing that people find out. Also, not feeling like they have any room for progression. So sometimes when you don't see anyone at the top like you, you feel like, can I really get there? Is there space for me? Some people have met people at the top that are black, that are unfortunately sellouts. And it's like, because I've worked with black leaders and been like, you're here and you're not really representing, So, and I think maybe you had to water yourself a little bit to get there. And I think a lot of black people don't want to do that, so they don't bother staying in a place. There's also the balance of just being over-criticised. Over-criticism is something that comes back to me a lot of the time. So there was one girl I know in our network, for example, she went to a Christmas party a couple of weeks ago, she dropped a glass by accident because she was drinking. And then the team reported her and said that she threw a glass at one of them, right? So she had to go through disciplinary, had to take time off of work, had to go through investigation. Turns out that she just dropped the glass when they looked at like the cameras and stuff. And all of that hassle and haggle and stress, forget about, she's got her job and everything, but that's a traumatic experience for someone
100.
to have to go through all of that and then work with these people that have accused you of throwing a glass when you didn't.
And then what happens to the people that have accused
Nothing.
her, falsely accused her?
Nothing.
They just
And that's
get on like normal.
no, nothing. And that's the problem. So these are reoccurring situations. There's another person that I know. They had a manager that just decided to do a restructure and say your role's not needed anymore. Out of nowhere. This person has been in that role for about 6 years. The manager's been in the role for 6 months. They've come in new and said, we don't need you in the team. She's the only black person on the team. So sometimes it's just the managers not seeing value. And that's why I make a point of duty to do the other side and actually educate black professionals on what they can do to navigate these spaces smartly. And using your voice is a big part of that. Because when you set the tone from day one, they cannot play games with you. When you set the tone, it's either they say, you're not for me, you're too vocal, cool, all right, bye. Or they say, we cannot take the mick with this one. Do you know what I mean? So that's what people need to know how to do, but do it in a professional way, you know?
When you say set the tone, so what do you mean?
So, for example, in my most recent workplace, when I started, I said to them, before I even accepted the role, I said, I've gone on your website and I've seen that it's all white males. At the top, and I said to them, that gives me a bit of anxiety because I'm a black woman and there's no other black woman in the company, and I don't know if you're going to understand me, if you're going to really, respect my opinion, my perspectives, my difference. What's your perspective on that? I just want to understand. This is my current view. Let me hear what you have to say about that. That's setting the tone because I want to hear what you have to say, and how you respond determines on if I decide to want to join you or not. So that's one of the things. So ask questions to understand their minds, interview them, so they feel like they need to think about the things that they say and what they put in set for you. That's one way. Another way is when something happens, you pull it up. So again, when I started that workplace, there was a meeting I was in at one point, and my director, lovely guy by the way, got all the respect for him. I think he innocently kept on interrupting me in the conversation with a client on that call. Straight away after the call, I said, do you have a minute to talk? And I said, look, I know that you're really passionate about talking about DEI and everything, but I said, when I'm speaking, I'd appreciate not being interrupted. Is that okay with you? Because you kept on doing that in the last conversation. I'm so sorry, Alicia, I didn't mean to do that. I don't mean to ever interrupt you. That was just my mistake. Never did it again. So just calling things out, but just doing it in a way to make sense of it. Say, look, this action results in this. We're trying to get to this. So let's probably not do this together and let's work towards getting that goal that we want. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. In this DEI, how long have you been in the DEI space? So
I would say unofficially for about... unofficially 4 years, because I've always done like diverse hiring strategies and been managing DEI partnerships and everything in companies. But full time, I would say 1.5 years. So okay. I'm very new to this space. I've learned a lot, but I'm very new.
All right, I'm wondering a couple of things then. Because first of all, because you're fairly new to the space, you might not have seen this over time. But first of all, whether you're seeing any shift in any change, whether companies or organizations are getting their DE&I strategies better more often than not, or is it getting worse, or is it sort of just stayed the same? And also the other thing I was wondering is whether you've come across organizations that are doing it right, that have got the DE&I on point and are doing it proper.
Yeah. I am yet to come across a company that I think they're doing everything right. Because on the outskirts, there's been companies, I'm going to answer your other question as well, by the way. There are companies that I've seen do, like, their hiring process is really good. So there's one company in particular, I won't mention their name because I've got some other intel. So their hiring processes are actually quite inclusive. I've actually reviewed them. I've done a lot of sessions with them. They've got like a diverse hiring committee. They even work with us. So they're good. They're making the efforts for the hiring part. But I know individuals, black individuals that work at the organisation that say different. So that tells me that there's still work to be done. And that's just Black. I'm not even talking about the other spectrums of diversity, from neurodiversity, disabilities to LGBTQ+. That I haven't even gone into that. So I think the work companies seem to be focusing on the hiring piece at the moment, but the retention piece is missing, and also the equity piece to actually allow diverse voices get to the top. And that's what I'm noticing the trend is. Companies want to become more diverse, but they still want to keep them at a certain level. They're still like a red line. Because when it comes to putting someone in your senior leadership, we needed them to have managed £10 million budgets or campaigns or done this or done this. They're putting requirements in place that they haven't done that because they haven't had that exposure like you previously. So what are you going to do to make sure that they can get to the top? So the problem is that there isn't any equitable strategies that I've seen. I'm working with organisations on one, but there's so many problems from leadership team. Everyone in the leadership team needs to be brought on board. If it's not, a DEI strategy is going to be really hard to implement because it requires the leadership team to actively do things that I've put out in the strategy. And then I've also, me speaking to other DEI professionals from a consultancy base, budgets are being cut left, right and centre. So companies are investing less into DEI, especially because it's harder to measure. So how people see DEI is that, we'll do this training. Everyone should now know about bias. We'll do this training. No one should be doing microaggressions in the workplace. Or we'll do this event. Yay, we celebrated women. Yeah. It's just these random bits of things that people keep on doing. But I always say to organisations, look within your organisation, look and understand, where are you failing? Where can you improve? There's areas for improvement. And you get some organisations saying, we're diverse. We've got people in the company. Look within and understand what the problems are and work on those on a long-term basis. And you have to be patient. It's like going to the gym. You can't expect to go and do sit-ups tomorrow and your stomach is flat. You have to be doing the eating. You have to be doing the exercising for a long period of time. You have to have everything right. Your mind, everything needs to be there. You're sleeping. If you're not doing all those things, the formula, you're not going to see the end results. And the problem is that companies are not doing everything required in the formula to see the end results. Hence why they're saying, it's not working, cut the budgets. And that's the problem that I'm seeing.
You've managed to build a big community, successful community, Black Creator Connect. Can you talk about how you've gone about doing that and what you thought you've done right and wrong in building that community of people?
Good question. So Black Create Connect, shout out Black Create Connect community. I love the community. It's my heart and soul. Started initially just off the back of a LinkedIn recruiter search that I was doing, and I couldn't find any Black candidates after like 10 pages. I've said this quite a few times, but I'm saying it again. Okay, it was like 10 pages. I was looking for like a senior project manager or something, and I couldn't find any. Now, 10 pages is really, really bad. I just done that because I wanted to open up the pool a little bit. But if you're realistically not coming up in the first 2 pages of a LinkedIn recruiter search, unfortunately, you're not going to be contacted for many opportunities, which is limiting. So then I thought there's a problem here. Whatever the problem is, let me try to solve it with a group chat. Put it out there and said, join this group chat. I've got jobs, let me share them. And that was literally the only intention. It happened to be COVID, so it meant that there was many people losing their jobs, being made redundant, put on furlough. So there was that support that was needed. And then also on top of that, we had Black Lives Matter. So we also needed the emotional support because people at their companies people then saw that their companies were actually racist because they weren't talking about it or they weren't doing anything. So that community just became a space of love. It's such a supportive space that I think has come from the characters that I've met, and I've said, you can come into this space, you come into this space. And I think when people invite their friends, because sometimes I don't really vet anyone, but when people invite their friends, I think they just know the tone from when they come into the group and they just see the energy, they look at our branding, they see the events we've put on, they speak to people, and it just flows. So even last night when we had the networking event, every single person said we just had such nourishing conversations, enriching conversations. And I think that comes from, to be honest, just how I am and how I've been with everyone. And that passes on because people follow the person that has started it and said, that's the tone of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that, I think what I've done successfully in that is I've set the tone. And when I've sensed any area of disruption, because I have seen some people in the group potentially disrupting things or putting things in a different way, I'll remove them, because that's not the space for this. We're not doing gossip, we're not doing all of that. This is the space of elevation only, and growth. So I think I've been very intentional with that. I'm very intentional with sticking to my word. So my word is, I'm gonna get you in spaces in companies' offices. I'm going to get you to talk to companies. I'm going to share jobs with you. We're going to connect together. I'm going to have a podcast and speak to some great leaders so you can learn from them continuously. We're going to do this. And I think the important thing of the community is you have to be ideas based, be able to create ideas, but you also have to listen to the community. So we take feedback from them, we understand what to change and nurture, and you have to deliver. If you don't deliver on things, they're just gonna think, oh, you're just chatting, like you're not actually, like even yesterday, I wasn't gonna do it at end of year event. We did a poll in the group chat and everyone was like, event, evening event. So I'm like, I've now asked them, they've all now said they want this. If I don't do this, then I'm not going to look like a credible, I'm going to look like I'm not serving the community, and that's what I need to do. So I think if you are going to be a community leader, you have to be prepared to serve the community. And sometimes, I mean, I've invested a whole heap of money into Black Create Connect. But do you know what? For me, I feel like it's worth it, because I feel like if, God forbid, I was to die tomorrow, I've invested and helped so many people so far. And that's a blessing in itself. And that's okay. That's fine. And I think that there's going to be a massive, big return. The return isn't just for me. It's for our community to be richer, to be wealthier, to be more knowledgeable, to grow. When we're surrounded by people that are doing well, you're just going to do well. Like, automatically. And what I've noticed is, ever since doing the community, there's so many more opportunities, paid opportunities, that have come my way from people saying, oh, Alicia, you can do this, because people just know what you do. So by being in a certain space, you get so much more. And that's kind of what it is. It's just about connecting, sticking to your words, leading by example. And yeah.
Nice. Alicia, have you got any final words?
Final words. What words, as in like encouragement?
Just anything, just final thoughts, words.
I would say, don't be afraid to use your voice. Doesn't matter if you're an introvert, doesn't matter if you're not confident, but speak up, because your words can have impact. And there's a quote I like to say by Alice Walker, who's an American novelist. And she says, the biggest way that people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And by not using your voice, you're thinking you don't have a voice and you don't have any power. But you need to think you do, and you will surprise yourself. So that's what I would say is my final words.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the podcast once again.
You're welcome.
This was Alicia Richardson. This is 1000 Voices. And for now, people, we're out.